This is the Altitude Daily Podcast. Everything you can't miss from today on Altitude Sports Radio. Mosher, Lombardi, and Kane.
If the Denver Nuggets want to make a personnel move, coaching move, front office move, they did everything I think you're supposed to do. They alerted their star player first. They alerted him. Note the word alert.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for his permission, and if they had, Nikola Jokić is the kind of guy that would be offended by that. Nikola Jokić would say, "Wait, why are you asking me? No, this is your baby."
Owners own, GMs GM, coaches coach, players play. That's how he thinks.
Now,
You
again,
don't ask for permission. And I am so tired of having this argument with people. Yeah, but he's the franchise. I know what he is. I know what he means. I know everything. This is not the way it works.
I think you're right. There's a texter that thinks that we're insane for saying this, but let me explain something to you. I think that there are instances.
Does this texter run a business?
Well, hang on.
Ask him.
Hang on. I think there are instances in which you do not make a decision without Jokic's approval. For example,
100%.
I think if you're talking about if they were going to trade Jamal Murray, you need to go to Joker first and be like, dude, I just want to let you know, this is something that's on the table. Would you be cool with this? Yeah. I think absolutely you should do something like that. But
consultation about that kind of thing is expected, and it's normal.
And that's somebody that he's working with intimately on the court for, 40 minutes a night. So when it comes to an organizational decision, you can't leave all of those up to the player because let's be honest, sometimes the player doesn't know best. And if you want an example of that, LeBron James has made some really, really poor decisions for the teams that he's played on before. He wanted to fire Eric Spoelstra 2 years into Miami, and Pat Riley was like, no.
And Spoelstra,
that's not your choice.
He's still there.
And Spoelstra's still there because he's a great coach. But imagine if they just let him go.
You like getting nailed by the king.
So all it is, and I think that Jokic, it's just another amazing detail of why he is like,
why he's the best.
The dream of a superstar that you want on your team.
He even said it. He went on to say, listen, in my country, this happens all the time, and you move on.
He said usually when somebody gets fired, you're next.
You're next. That's right.
What he said.
Remember, I said this yesterday.
That.
I said,
I love it.
This was as much a message to the players as anybody. You sent a message to the entire organization. Who's in?
The Altitude Daily, the morning sprint.
In the Post-Malone era, we learned that Post-Malone's real name, it's David Adelman. We were talking about that yesterday. Who is Post-Malone? It is David Adelman.
They did look refreshed. They looked like there was a little bit of juice. Jokic in his post-game interview says he may have awakened the beast, right? Adelman giving Joker a little bit more of a voice in the role or in the locker room, I suppose, a little bit more of a voice when timeouts are called. And you saw Joker grabbing clipboards, drawing up plays during the game against the Kings last night. It did feel like there was some sort of energy. So we go back to the conversation that we've had over the last couple of days is, yes, this decision to move on from Calvin Booth and Michael Malone is not just about this year. It is about the future. It is about Nikola Jokić 2.0.
It has to be.
But when Josh Kroenke came out and said to Vic, this is about finding a spark and squeezing some juice out of this season, that's exactly what you need to see last night.
Raj, when you heard Josh Kroenke on that interview with our very own Vic Lombardi, what did it remind you of in recent Denver professional sports? When you hear somebody that made a decision to move on from somebody and use the word looking for a spark or the phrase looking for a spark. Think moving on from Russell Wilson, Sean Payton said, Jarrett Stidham is the spark we need.
Oh, hold on. I think David Adelman is a far better spark than Jarrett Stidham ever could have been.
And I had the same sentiments when I first heard it. I said, this is going to be a very different spark than what is going to end up being a lifetime backup quarterback who's going to be a spark for a Super Bowl winning quarterback in Russell Wilson. What I saw last night was a spark, not necessarily in the form of insane levels of energy from David Adelman. There was oxygen. There was oxygen.
There was life to the team.
There was life to the team, but there was also room to breathe. There was room to communicate. There was room to operate without maybe a suffocating domineering leader in Michael Malone, and it allowed for the most important thing that championships always are comprised of, and that's a player-led team. And you saw it in the form of Nikola Jokic. You just talked about it. You also saw it with Christian Brown. He was like, you know what? Why wait? This is my opportunity to lead right now. And I think it was just I loved what David Adelman did. I think he struck the right chord of being very calm, cool, calm, and collected. And I think he was himself. I think he was genuine, and he allowed the players to breathe.
The Altitude Daily. Columbus, Hastings, and DMAC.
I'm not going to say what Josh told me. So, I mean, I knew a little bit before everybody, and he told me, like, we made a decision. So it was not discussion. It was decision, and, he told me why, and so I listened and I accepted. I'm not going to tell what he told me. I'm going to keep that private.
Okay. General observation. I got all sorts of thoughts and the Athletic article to go into, but general thoughts about last night. And I got a bunch of supporting audio for everything here. But what were you thinking?
Well, I guess you start pregame with the presser, right? And boy, David Adelman sure felt comfortable. He could not have looked like he was more confident.
Yeah, wasn't his first time.
Not his first. Okay, break that down. I'm not.
He's filled in for Malone and done.
But that's different.
Okay, sure.
Filling in is radically different.
But it's not like he hasn't talked to them. Agreed. But he's done that routine before. He's spoken to the media before. He's done all that. But sorry.
Probably never had one of his better friends fired.
No,
that gave him an opportunity in life, right?
Of course.
So you started right there, and you're just like, okay, cool. You never want to judge too much based off of a first presser. We've done that with Vance Joseph when it was a disaster. We've done that with others. But, you see a guy go up there, and it's comforting. It's comforting to know that the locker room has got a guy that clearly is not spiraling, a guy that is not panicking, and a guy that you can see why the guys in that locker room would respect him. He does look young when he's on the sideline, doesn't he?
43.
Yeah, he does look young.
He's just a small, I'm a small, short guy.
Yeah, that. Like the overall stature of him just does not scream Michael Malone.
Yeah, I mean, if we stood back to back, it'd be interesting. I'm not claiming I'm taller than him.
Right.
But me, David Adelman, and Vic Lombardi hanging out together would sort of all make sense.
Yeah. And then lo and behold, every starter plays great. Jalen Pickett plays great. They all play great. Russell Westbrook plays 19, 17 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, more appropriate.
Less than 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears that people are on the same page now without a GM or a head coach.
Yeah. Yeah, the Jalen Pickett needs to close out, which we talked about. The video we had, or Dan Tanner was trying to get me in trouble by me bashing Russell Westbrook, which I wasn't really trying to do, but the way Dan wrote it, I was like, oh my God. But you know what? It was 100% right. Because the question was, where would Russell Westbrook best be served? And I said on the bench. What I meant was not that he should be benched, period. But what I meant, and we did talk about, is that you can't have him in there during these closing moments of the game. He's too erratic.
The Altitude Daily. Kretman and Lindahl.
Yes, Andy did ask me earlier today, why isn't he just the player coach? The collective bargaining agreement strictly prohibits that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Why?
Because then you would be paying two salaries to a guy, and thus you would be fudging numbers. Right. So, yes, you're technically not allowed to be a player coach, but we know what Nikola Jokic is.
How many guys do you think would want to be a coach? Because, I don't
think Jokic
wants
to.
I was about to say, I'm not even positive Jokic wants to,
he doesn't
but he just has the gift for it.
He does. But also, okay, and in all seriousness.
Because this is the same as how many quarterbacks can really call their own plays and read the div and all that.
Isn't this what this is what we want out of our star?
Yeah.
And I think when Jokic is at his very best, because let's be honest, with all of the, all the talk of Cold War and everything this week, and Calvin Booth and Michael Malone and Nikola Jokic is the guy. Okay, that it's him. All right, he is the face of the franchise, and I said this yesterday in defense of both Booth and Malone. I think that they were both trying to do what they thought was the correct thing in service of Nikola Jokic, just like I think that Josh Kroenke is trying to do the right thing in the service of Nikola Jokic. Everyone is trying to do right by Jokic right now because he was clearly frustrated with the direction of the franchise. I don't think he called for the firing of Michael Malone. I think he was a guy that went to work every single day and he said, this isn't working. And last night, Nikola Jokic, I think, as a huge assist to David Adelman. I think that Nikola Jokic said, I am here. I am the first guy in line with the buy-in. Okay? And guess what? When he does that, everybody else has to follow suit. And so, number one, David Adelman, jokes aside from the Open, I thought he was great last night. I thought he was great in his pregame, in his postgame. I thought he was great with the way that he coached that game. I thought his game plan was very good last night. And I say that because not that much really changed, but I also don't think it's that hard to have a different voice at the front of the room to emphasize a couple of things. And Andy, it wasn't like they were schematically doing anything different last night. They really weren't.
Right.
They were just doing things better. There was an attention to detail that happened in that game last night. Now, there were some, number one, I thought Jokic had a very different kind of game than he's been having of late. But defensively, it just looked like, oh, you guys are actually right now playing with a better attention to detail.
You've been listening to The Altitude Daily. Catch us live weekdays on 92.5 FM, the Altitude Sports Radio app, twitch.tv/AltitudeSR, youtube.com/Altitude Sports Radio, and your favorite smart speaker. Say Altitude Sports Radio.